The Alaskan wilderness hides many secrets, and Whittier is one of them. Originally known as Camp Sullivan, the hidden military complex was once filled with soldiers ready to fight a Japanese or Soviet invasion. However, the place became a ghost town when the Cold War ended, and yet life found a way to repurpose the imposing and long-forgotten facilities. Although footage and pictures of these buildings show that they were built and used by the U.S. military, they have been repurposed to the point that this once secret military complex became a tiny, autonomous city. Alaska's Defense Command. In the early 1930s, Colonel Otto Olson became a passionate promoter of Alaska. He tirelessly worked with the U.S. government to receive considerable federal funding to expand infrastructure in the state. When Canada went to war against Germany and Japan during the last months of 1939, the United States and Canada began thinking of a way to protect their borders from a potential Japanese attack in the Pacific. This led to the Canadian-American Permanent Joint Board of Defense, which was formed in August of 1940. Although the U.S. supported the United Kingdom and Canada economically, the country was still neutral. Still, many military officials knew it was a matter of time before the war came to them. As tensions rose, the U.S. Army began to build and reinforce several facilities across Alaska. Elmendorf Army Airfield was one of them. Colonel Simon Bolivar Buckner Jr. was given the Alaska Defense Force Command in 1940 to prepare the state for war. Buckner knew the most significant challenge he faced was transportation. There were not enough roads to connect the main strongpoints of Alaska, and without a functioning line of communication, moving troops, supplies, and other goods would quickly become a massive problem. As such, Colonel Buckner began looking for the best engineers in Alaska to help him devise a solution. Digging the mountains. In May of 1941, Dutch Harbor became a forward deployment area. The Marines and the Navy quickly established there and got to work, and the Army began constructing air bases and other facilities at Anchorage and Fairbanks. Meanwhile, Colonel Buckner sought the counsel of Colonel Olson and engineer Anton Anderson to set up a secret military installation that could be used to ferry men and supplies to Anchorage and Fairbanks. The objective was to connect the secret base to the Army facilities and air bases in the Alaskan interior. Buckner's ideal base had to be naturally protected from enemy airstrikes, radar-unfriendly topography, and access to an ice-free deep water port. The location was close to the Passage Canal, but the nearby mountains were impenetrable. Buckner and his engineers had to blast a hole to link the desired port facility to Anchorage, which was about 60 miles away. Work began in November of 1941, just weeks before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Despite the sub-zero temperatures, the project was accelerated when the U.S. Army gained intelligence about the upcoming Japanese occupation of the Aleutian Islands. Enough progress was made, but it did little to prevent the Japanese occupation of Attu, Kiska, and the bombing of Dutch Harbor in June and July of 1942. Alaska had just become a war theater. Military town H-12. A stone memorial was erected in June of 1943 to mark the culmination of the railway cut through within the 4,137-foot Maynard Mountain. The hidden facility's entrance was triangular, and the tunnel had a combined length of over 3.5 miles. It was the only way in or out. Following the construction of the tracks and the tunnel, the military began laying out a plan to build a permanent settlement for the armed forces. The outpost was conceived to occupy a military force of over 1,200 fighting men, codenamed H-12. Still, it was commonly referred to as Camp Sullivan. After the end of the Cold War in the 1980s, the camp would be renamed Whittier in honor of the 19th century poet John Greenleaf Whittier. The World War II-era town comprised a mess hall, chapel, theater, and the main barracks, all made of wood. Additional infrastructures made of heavier materials were later built by the 714th Railway Operating Battalion to service the railroad and port. During World War II, and until the end of the Vietnam War, the existence of Camp Sullivan was kept secret, and few people knew of its existence, even locals. During this period, no civilians could enter the camp, and no filming or photographing was allowed inside. This strict isolation from the outside world ensured the secrecy of the camp in the case of conflict against the Japanese or the Soviets during the height of the Cold War. Over the decades, Camp Sullivan significantly changed and was continuously restructured to fit new combat and defensive measures. Then, in 1964, a devastating earthquake destroyed several areas in Alaska, including the town. Much of the World War II-era buildings were lost. Only the Army Communications Systems building survived, becoming the Anchor Inn Hotel once the town was demilitarized. City under one roof. The critical component of Camp Sullivan was the Buckner Building, named in honor of the general who lost his life in the Pacific during World War II. The facility began construction in 1950 during the Cold War and was completed 3 years later. It consisted of several reinforced concrete structures and additional support facilities. The complex had 8 floors, including the basement and the penthouse-level ventilation equipment. Floors 1 and 2 had 12-foot ceilings, while floors 3 to 6 were 10 feet long. The building had exterior walls made of reinforced concrete to withstand any external damage, including bomb detonations. Meanwhile, the frames and floor slabs served as structural diaphragms to transmit lateral loads to the vertical resisting elements of the structure, which proved its worth during the devastating March 27, 1964 earthquake that destroyed most of the city. The entire complex was conceived as a mini town of its own. The building had a hospital, cinema, gym, pool, jail, radio station, convenience store, bowling alley, and rifle range. The Buckner Building was also known as the City Under One Roof, because no soldiers living inside needed to leave the camp at all. They had it all. Because of this advantage, there was not much ground movement, which helped avoid detection by enemy spy planes. Moreover, the more than 1,000 men assigned to the secret camp were protected by the fog, the mountains, and the thick concrete walls. Whittier today. Footage from the aftermath of the 1964 earthquake shows the damage that Whittier suffered. However, the overall structures were very well preserved. The military kept control of it until 1968. Then, in the 1970s, Whittier, or Camp Sullivan, reached second-class city status. There have been numerous attempts to restore the property and turn it into a resort complex, but none have gone through. For the time being, the abandoned Buckner Building will continue waiting to be revived, while another of the military buildings, the Begich Towers, has found new life. These towers have become apartment buildings where the more than 200 residents of Whittier live today. And although there is still only one way in and out of the complex, the tunnel has accommodated road vehicles and is still very much in use. As Whittier thrives and receives plenty of tourists, only time will tell if the massive Buckner Building sees new life before nature and vandalism continue taking its toll. Thank you for watching our video. Please like and subscribe to our Dark Documentaries channels to find more exciting historical content. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest videos.